So I never got a chance to really talk about this because one, anytime I would try to record it, basically my phone would act up, or basically I run out of space and everything, or basically, long story short, the device, like my Kindle, would not let me transfer the files over from, let's say, a GoPro or my other camera. But anyway, I wanted to come on here because over this past few days, more information because of the Janelle Grant story has been coming out, and actually text messages have been, courtesy of the courts, where the case is taking place, has been publicly released from, and you'll see them up here if I can put them up here, from Triple H, Nick Khan, and everything themselves. And basically, we all want to talk about, this whole power struggle, but situation that WWE and Triple H and Nick Khan are going through right now, with TKO, Ari Emanuel, and Mark Shapiro and such. Well, apparently this has been going on. Excuse me. Apparently this has been going on for at least, at least past few years. 3 to 2 years, if you will. As early back as 2003, I believe. And I got my new phone here. I'm going to look it up here. And this actually helps out a lot, But these conversations, apparently, according to Brandon Thurston, Post Wrestling, these conversations have been, going on since about, like I said, 2003, and, as early as 2000, as late as 2003, December 2003, and everything. And that's essentially what it is, hovering around 2003. And basically, the gist of it is that Triple H did not like the idea that Vince was hanging around. That despite everything that was coming down against him, Vince was still sticking his nose in as much as he could. And Triple H wasn't very fond of that. He wasn't very fond whatsoever, but at the time, what could he really do? It really wasn't his company. Oh, not his company. It really wasn't his creatively. At that time, he was pretty much the face of creative and everything. The head of creative, quote unquote, at that time because of what was going on. But it wasn't fully, his, final say. Period. He can make it sound like it was his final say, but he couldn't. And he even said in an interview that he did with Cody Rhodes, that I guess they dropped early or something like that, that essentially, even up to WrestleMania 40, essentially Vince was still, running the show. He would talk with Vince to chime in and everything. And basically, Triple H, would just have these conversations with him and all that, and so on. So yeah, Vince was still pretty much creatively in charge, believe it or not. At least up till 40, just around 40, he was still working and helping out in the creative process, which was really a surprise because everybody pretty much figured that, after everything started to really come out in 2023, yeah, it was 2023, yeah, 2023, I believe. Everybody probably, pretty much thought like, well, okay, obviously he's out. It's publicly known now. That he wouldn't have anything to do with the WWE, whatsoever in any capacity, but that's not the case. He did have some, some say, if you will, he still had that controlling interest, if you will, because basically, even though TKO and Endeavor had 51%, Vince was still technically on the board, so he could technically still come in and give his thoughts on what he felt needed to be done and what didn't need to be done and so on. And these texts, though, that have been coming about, like they say, go back as far as 2023, late 2023, believe it or not. where essentially Vince, it does correlate with what Triple H says on the What You Want to Talk About podcast with Cody. Vince was still pretty much, in the weeds, as they say, because there's even part of the text that talks about, him going, him coming to Monday Night Raw television in Cleveland when it was doing a show in Cleveland, and this is after supposedly he was out. He was pretty much, done, period. So it definitely feels like when you look at this, in a sense, that Vince, even though he's supposedly was supposed to be gone, out the door, not near the company anymore whatsoever, that he was. And apparently the way these texts go off, according to a lot of people, like Coach, Jonathan Coachman, when he was doing doing his weekly 2 count show with JD from NY206 off the script. Basically, it sounds like, according to a lot of sources, that pretty much this is a situation that really, it really has been manifesting itself, internally, backstage, structurally, for the past several years, and now we'll get into this crescendo, this boiling point, to where it's like, okay, enough's enough. It's like, if you guys want to be involved in the damn business, then get involved in the business. Stop raising the prices, and let us know in advance what you want done and who you want involved and stuff like that. Don't do it at the last second. So to me, when I look at these texts, though, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, I feel that there might be more to these texts than, we're being led on to believe. And I think, honestly, what we're reading there is correlating right now. Like, someone was telling me the other day, what if Vince is still kind of communicating with Ari, and Ari is the one, giving, Hunter and all them these ideas that are not necessarily his, but they're Vince's. Because Vince still wants to be part of the company, but he can't be. So he's on the phone, basically, or texting basically with Ari, going, hey, why don't you do this and everything? It's what I would do, and because apparently they're close friends, so. And Ari kind of knew of all the crap Vince had put himself through and everything, or put the company through, and didn't say anything when this whole merger, this whole purchase of WWE by Endeavor and TKO occurred. So it's just one of those situations that when you look, at what you see here, in these texts, it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing to really see, if you will, technically, because it's like, you would think somebody would take Vince aside and tell him, hey, you can't be involved whatsoever. It's going to come back to bite you. And, he doesn't listen. He's too prideful to listen. And, for him to even in one of the conversations, ask if Cody and Roman know changes the plans, and this relates to WrestleMania 39, that just shows you, this is not a good look for, Vince. It's not a good look for WWE. This is not a good look for Nick Khan. This is not a good look for Ari Emanuel. To an extent, maybe not even Triple H it's a good look for, but I think Triple H is going to be more of the, lucky son of a gun that comes out, barely, he's going to come out with some scratches, but he's not going to come out, dead on arrival. He's going to be pretty much, okay to keep going and everything. And for anybody that thinks, oh, he's going to be gone within 18 months, 12 months, 2 years at most, 3 years, I basically wouldn't bet on that, because, if that was the case, Triple H, apparently according to these texts and everything, Triple H, in my opinion, probably would have left the damn company a long time ago. Had he saw how things were going to go. And the moment when he saw and heard The Rock was on the board of directors, and he was bringing in his own personal $7 Studios production writer from who even worked for WWE at one point, Brian Gertz, in to be part of everything. I think Triple H, even around that time, would have said, what, that's it. I see the writing. I'm out of here. But he hasn't done that, because it means a lot to him to be part of this. It means a lot to him to build for the future. So to me, I look at the fact that, honestly, and this is just my opinion, I don't think he's going to leave. And I think him sending out the likes of Punk and Rhodes over the past, several days and everything, it's just his way, and Nick Khan, to an extent maybe, their way to get around the fact that, hey, we can't really say anything to Ari or anybody else in this position, but these guys can, and they realize that these guys, from what Nick Khan has sold them on, and I've sold them on, these guys are pretty much money makers. They are the franchise player. They are basically the untouchables. Why not send them out, and voice, how we've been feeling? And that was my phone. Voice how we, behind the scenes, creatively and talent-wise and fan-wise, have been feeling. And that's what they did. That's what they did. So, honestly, I look at it this way. Whatever comes to be based on these, I can tell you right now that after WrestleMania 42, I can tell you honestly, I don't think Ari, and this is my opinion, because he's, being outed in these texts and all that, I don't think Ari Emanuel is going to have much to say for a while. Like, I don't think he's going to want to touch WWE for a while, whether whether he wants to or not, because I got a feeling he's going to have more not courting appearances, and matters to attend to, if you know what I mean. He's going to have more courting appearances to attend to, if you know what I mean. So, anyway, yeah, these texts that you can see on the screen, they're very interesting to look at, and I would highly recommend, honestly, this is just my opinion, I would highly recommend really just looking them over and kind of coming up with your own speculation as to what exactly, this could all mean in the future for WWE, and mostly, Ari, Nick Khan, Triple H, if you will. And again, I don't think Triple H is, going to get out, without a scratch. He'll have a few scratches, figuratively, but I think he's going to be fine. I think, honestly, in my opinion, the courts are going to talk with Ari. They're going to bring him in for questioning. They're going to ask him, did you know about Vince, and his actions and what he done before bringing him on board? They're going to ask him. They're going to ask Nick Khan and everything. And it's going to be very interesting. I think with Nick Khan, he might retain his job as president of WWE, but I think he'll mostly have like a microscope on him to where whatever decision he comes up with, whatever phone calls exchanges he makes are going to be micromanaged by those that pretty much put him into that position, if you know what I mean. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I'm going to really but let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comment section, if you will. Love to hear from each and every one of you on this. What are your thoughts on these texts and all that? How do you think it's going to affect everybody else that I've mentioned? Do you agree with some of the things I talked about or not? Let me know. And until then, I am out. Take care. God bless. But guys, give me your thoughts. Love to hear from each and every one of you.